Hi friends, welcome back to Mana Chandamama Kathalu. This is the fifth part of the Comet. If you haven't watched the part 1 to part 4 of the Comet, please do go ahead and do it right now. The links for all of them are in the description below. So let's get back for a recap. Samarsen found many hazards, including 2 sorcerers who had uncanny powers. While trying to avoid one of the sorcerers' one eye, Samarsen lost 2 of his 6 followers and unexpectedly came upon another sorcerer. Let's get back and see what happened in the Comet part 5. Samarsen and his men went on watching the lake from behind the bushes. Now they could distinctly see the person standing in the lake. He was wearing the cap that had 2 eye-like slits, of which there were 2 beams of light appearing to shoot upwards. This was the same cap which they saw hanging on the branch over the water of the lake. Samarsen easily summarized that this is the man who is the 4 eyes. He had his extra eyes in his cap, and that is how he must have got his name. Now I must avoid being seen by this person, Samarsen said to himself, and he began to wonder how best he could do it. While he was thus engaged, his followers were whispering among themselves and commenting upon the 4 eyes of the sorcerer. Samarsen was listening to their comments while he was still busy thinking of a plan to escape. So suddenly he spoke out. Is it not true that this sorcerer 4 eyes is a deadly enemy of the one eye? His men assented. One of them could read Samarsen's line of thought. So he quickly said, Commander, if I may be permitted to make a remark. Certainly, my dear fellow, Samarsen replied. Every one of us has the right to make a suggestion. We stand in utmost need of collective thinking at the moment. So if I read you correctly, Commander, you appear to be thinking of turning to our advantage the enmity that exists between one eye and 4 eyes. But I have a suggestion to make. The lion and the tiger may be deadly enemies, but at the same time, each one is deadly enough. One mustn't forget that. There's a lot of truth in that, Samarsen said thoughtfully. These are great magicians with darkest forces of evil at their command. Samarsen saw 4 eyes come out of the water and suddenly fell silent. All the men were seized with great dread. Their instinct told them to run away from there, but they did not. They hardly took a step when they heard the clear and bell-like voice of 4 eyes. You fools, they heard. Do you really expect to escape me? No, you can't. Nothing can obstruct my vision. Neither the trees, nor the rocks, nor the hills. I can see through all. I can see everything that goes on in the isle. Wait. 4 eyes raised his voice and summoned the awesome owl and the ape man. Having heard the call, both the creatures have appeared and barred the way for Samarsen and his men. While the ape man flourished a big branch of a tree, the owl flew out making ear-splitting noises. Now Samarsen knew where he stood. The situation was completely out of his hands. Their bows, arrows and swords are quite useless right now. Now friends, he told his men, it is up to Mother Kundalini to look after us. The men stood dazed and transfixed as 4 eyes came to them with deliberate steps. But when he spoke, his voice was soft and gentle. Who are you? What brought you to the isle? There was not a least hint of malice or cruelty in his speech, and his face was quite tranquil and serene. It was the way 4 eyes spoke to them that brought back some courage to Samarsen. Just for a moment, Samarsen could not decide whether to answer the sorcerer's question, but then made up his mind to answer it, since it is more than probable that he already knew what it is all about. Sir, said Samarsen, we are from the Isle of Kundalini. While going on a voyage, we were beset by a storm and brought here. 4 eyes laughed. What you said is quite true, but how is it that you omitted to tell me why you have started on a voyage at all? There was no concealing anything right now, and Samarsen made a clean breast of everything, telling 4 eyes how the Kundalini coffers were empty, how he started the voyage, and how his plans were miscarried. So you started out in search of wealth, defying the comet, and a storm flung you here. That's fine. Now we too have a sorcerer here who is inordinately fond of wealth. Should you join the forces? 4 eyes laughed till the surroundings resounded. Samarsen and his men did not know how to take this laughter. While he was searching for something to say, there was a booming call. Hey Death said, hey devil serpent, come on, watch out, watch out. It was the unmistakable voice of Sorcerer One Eye. Samarsen turned to his men, who were shivering with fear, and told them, Go hide in those bamboo thickets, it's One Eye. All of them dashed to the nearest thicket. They were hardly concealed when One Eye came upon the spot. The leering skull was floating above his head, while the serpent accompanied his feet. Ah, I see you again. One Eye shouted triumphantly on seeing Four Eyes. After such a long time, I got you. Even as he said it, he drew out a broad sword from his belt. Is that One Eye that I see? Four Eyes said without moving an inch. Welcome, welcome. Then he changed his sneering voice to a shout and called Awesome Owl and Ape Man. In an instant, both were there, and One Eye appeared to be taken aback by the sight. Four Eyes did not fail to notice this. My dear owl, he said, you already had the taste of his right eye. Have a go at the left one too. At once, the owl flew at One Eye, who shouted in panic, Death's head, oh Death's head! Clicking its bony jaws, the skull flew at the owl and they began to fight. One Eye began to roar with laughter when Four Eyes, getting angry, shouted for the ape. The next instant, the ape jumped at the One Eye, who summoned the serpent. Another fight ensued between the ape and the serpent. The fight between the creatures of the sorcerer were prolonged, fierce and inconclusive. Samarsen and his men were watching the struggle from behind the thickets, and one of them commented upon it. Both the parties are well matched. That is our advantage, you know. Both the sorcerers eyed each other in anger. They knew that this fight is not going to be decisive. Four Eyes at last laughed and lifted his cap from his head with the incantation, Om Hreem. Immediately he disappeared, and at the same time his owl and ape were also gone. You disappear, do you? Boomed One Eye. Well, I'll see how long you'll remain safe and invisible. I shall get you. Don't worry. Then he looked all around, and fortunately he could not notice Samarsen and his men. He was still suffering from the lurking fear of the awesome owl. So he looked at the top of the trees, flourishing his sword. He had enough cause to fear for the owl because the owl was the one who made him One Eye. When finally One Eye departed with his death's head and serpent, the place became tranquil. The men hiding in the thickets heaved a sigh of relief and emerged out of the hiding place. Now their path was clear. They could go around the lake, keeping to the east as far as possible. They could hope to reach their ships in course of time. To their left was a mountain. If they reached the other side of the mountain, the coast might be very near. So Samarsen led his men towards this mountain. They did not go too far when the earth began to shake under their feet, and fearsome rumbling sounds proceeded from the interior of the earth. In another moment, great columns of smoke and fire rose from the peak of the mountain. It was a terrific but a fascinating sight. Samarsen and his men stood looking at the bursting volcano in great astonishment. So that brings us to the end of part 5. A great fierce battle between two sorcerers, and how Samarsen and his 4 followers right now are stuck between these two in the Isle of Sorcery, trying to reach back to their ships, not in search of wealth this time, but to save their own lives. Let's see what happens in the part 6 next Saturday. See you soon. If you like watching this video and the series, please do press the like button, share it with all your friends, let them know how interesting the stories were as old as 1955. So once again, to remind you, this is out of 1955 Chandamama that I am reading out. See you soon. Bye.